So, you guys remember my H-din that I showed in the last video, right? If not, I'll give you a little backstory. Just glossing over his gear, we can see that he's wielding a Hodo for the 40 FCR, 3 to skills, and all resistances. With that, he has a Shaco with the Ral rune in it, because I really needed the fire res against guys like Infector. An amulet with +1 to paladin skills with 10 FCR, all res and magic find. Very nice. Then some standard stuff like 35 FCR spirit, some war travelers, arachnid's mesh, and mage fists. Some items that you may expect to see on a magic finding caster. Finally, 2 perfect Nagel rings, and then the centerpiece of them all being the Enigma. So, like you may have gathered, this is a full magic finding character, and in these MF Diaries I'm going to show you a result of 1,000 MF runs I did with this guy. What did an MF run consist of, you may ask? Well, sit tight because it starts off with a run of the pits. Great area with TC87 dropping possibilities galore, and easy to clear with the Hammerdin, you know, with your 11k magic damage and all. Then I did an Andy run. She's cool for being notorious for dropping some of those juicy rings and amulets. After which, a Travincal run followed, mostly looking for facets and high runes. After this, I hit up Mephisto and all the minions in the Durance that are around him, because these guys can actually drop some really good stuff. With that, I did a Chaos run, another awesome TC87 area that the Hammerdin absolutely owns with magical damage. With that completed and of course Diablo killed, I killed Shenk and Eldritch. Now those were all the locations I showed you last time in my post-mini playthrough, but I added 3 more key super uniques, those being Nilhathak, the Summoner, and the Countess for the aforementioned keys to the Pandemonium effect. Now farming all of that constituted 1 run, and I did 1,000 of these, all on players 7 difficulty. Therefore, I just completed 1,000 pit runs, 1,000 Andy runs, 1,000 Travincal runs, 1,000 Mephisto runs, 1,000 Chaos runs, 1,000 Shenk and Eldritch runs, 1,000 Nilhathak runs, 1,000 Summoner runs, and 1,000 Countess runs, and here are all the GG drops I looted from it. Now, doing so many runs, you may imagine that I found a lot of good stuff, so I'm only going to focus on the most amazing drops, or on the items that I really wanted to find in this Magic Find haul. On that note, we start off in the pits on run 47. Here I found a set troll belt. This is something that I wanted to find for a long time, since this is Trangul's Girth. Not only does this item complete the Trangs set in my collection, which is really nice, this belt is often quite popular with Berserk Barbarians as their preferred source of Cannot Be Frozen, since Raven Frosts add the unwanted cold damage modifier. Therefore, that's a solid find to start things off. If you thought that was nice, boy are we just getting started. Next drop was on run 91 and was pretty GG, as it came from Andy, a skiller Grand Charm, and it was my first ever Paladin combat skiller, and that too with 25 life. I don't know about you, but in my eyes, Andariel has already proven her worth. That is one hell of a find on a Hammerdin, since it increases both my damage and my overall life. And not to mention, it is extremely rare and valuable. Next, the pits made a return on run 101 when I think a random fallen dropped me the amazing unique Berserker Axe Death Cleaver. This weapon hits quite hard with good enhanced damage. 230 to 280 is the roll, from which I got a middling 261, but what really makes this weapon is that 66% deadly strike, which ensures double damage every 2 out of 3 hits. It also attacks fast with 40% IAS with a fast base of a Berserker Axe, and speaking of which, this is also something a Berserker Barb can appreciate, especially if you're playing single player with no ladder only rune words and thus with no access to things like grief. Uniques are not the only interesting things I found, as on run 104 a superior Thresher dropped with 15% enhanced damage and 1 to attack rating. Unfortunately, you can't really get 4 sockets in this for Insight or Infinity, but only 5 sockets, since socket recipes in the cube don't work on superior weapons and Lazark only adds the maximum number of sockets, which is 5. So if nothing else, honestly, this would make quite a solid base for the runeword Do. The very next run though, I found a unique that I had been searching for a while, and about freaking time I found this unique amulet, Mara's Kaleidoscope. Plus pseudo skills, 5 to attributes, and all resistance from 20 to 30, from which I got 26. Pretty good stuff for any character that doesn't really need the FCR from a caster amulet. The drop after that was the first oof moment where I got good RNG, but not really. On run 124 I found the unique Legend Spike in the pits. Now this thing is very rare, and sure, I can cross this off my holy grail list, like woo, but given how rare this is, I could have instead used this good RNG to roll something like a unique diadem or spired helm, but instead I'm stuck with this ethereal dagger type thing. The next run, I was doing a chaos run though, when this ghost came spazzing towards me and upon dying dropped me an Istrun. So that happened. Cool story. The next run in the pits, I completed yet another set as I got the Set Colossus Blade, which is Bolcatho's Sacred Charge. On its own, this weapon is definitely superior than its sibling, boasting higher damage, attack speed, and crushing blow, but an annoying stat of knockback, which may interrupt the flow of a lot of your attacks. Still, pleasant to find this item and complete yet another set. Run 140, I found another one of those items that I really wanted to find. This time, en route to the CS, I found the unique winged axe, which is the Lacerator. Pretty much the best throw weapon in the game. I mean, it doesn't really have much competition, since there are only a few unique throwing weapons available, but it sure does blow all of them away with a 33% chance to cast amplify damage, which is very valuable for something like a throw barb to fight physical immunes and just increase overall damage. Therefore, in the future, if I ever plan to do a throw barb, which I plan to do a throw barb, just throwing it out there, this would be a very good item to use at that time. Speaking of things that are the best, next was arguably the best drop till now, as it was a Burr Rune in the pits on run 142. I almost didn't believe my eyes at first, but then I came to my senses as I realized that with this I was one step closer to my first infinity. I already had one Sir Rune left over from my lower Chorus running, so I was only one step away now, and this just is an excellent and arguably the most useful drop yet, and I'm buzzing with that. Run 142 didn't end there, as I found another good drop en route to the CS again, a Skiller Grand Charm, this time for the Javazon. This thing will be pretty useful when I build that Infinity IMO. Next, I found an item whose base I cannot say because YouTube may ban me or something, but it's Griswold's Valor from run 153 at Nilhathak. I look at this helm as honestly a missed opportunity. It could have been so awesome if it only had something like +2 to paladin skills or more all resistances than 5, and I would have definitely wielded it with 2 perfect topazes since it looks so much cooler than the stupid Shaco, but alas, a trophy item is what it is at most. Andariel paid out again in the next drop as she dropped me a low rune next. An amazing drop since low can be very useful, and I think my plan will be to use this in the rune word ice since I've already built grief and fortitude. Next drop didn't look special at first since it came from run 176 at Mephisto and it was a set of unique battle boots. But what made these special was that these were perfect 50 magic find war troughs. We found them, boys. The dream is real. I'm going to put them on right now, and I think it's safe to say that every single one of my magic finding characters have found the boots for them to wear. Brilliant. 4 runs later, I found a unique ring in the pits, and as with the Maras, this was long due since it was the Bulkathos vetting band. With this, I found all unique rings in Diablo 2, and what a ring to cap it off with +1 to skills, 4% life leech, and 47 life. Sure, it isn't as elusive as an SOJ, but hey, it's still one of the very best. Love this drop. It took 200 runs for the Countess to drop something noteworthy, and finally she dropped me a Skiller Grand Charm, +1 to summoning skills. Nothing really special on it alongside that, but good stuff for a summoning necro doing Ubers, am I right? One place that hadn't really paid out till now was Travincal, but on run 243 I found a unique ring. Another Bulkathos with 4% life leech once again. I guess I didn't mention last time that this ring can roll from 3 to 5% life leech, and Trav gave me the 4% life leech roll yet again that I got from the pits as well. So, Trav really hasn't come through with anything amazing yet. Hopefully that changes over the course of the rest of the runs. The CS had been coming through though, and this time it was Diablo's turn. On run 243 itself, he dropped me a unique Scourge, and since it is in this video, you could have guessed it, I found Stormlash. What you wouldn't have guessed is that it is a perfect Stormlash with 300% enhanced damage and 9 lightning absorb. Now that is a cool drop. Imagine finding this on a Holy Zealer. What really makes this weapon isn't really its raw damage. I mean, the 300% ED roll is nice, but it's really the static field on striking and the 33% chance of crushing blow, both of which really makes this pull way ahead of its sibling Horizon's Tornado. Some even say that it is the best single player Zealer weapon, and yeah, I can see why. Next drop is weird because if you watched my mini playthroughs, you would have seen me drop this twice before, Talrasha's Amulet. However, this was the first time I found this after creating my pluggy, and thus the first time I will get to keep it and use it on a sorceress, and therefore this was a very exciting time, as you may guess. Good stuff, Andariel. She came through again. Next drop was on run 260 and was super trollish since I found another skiller Grand Charm in the Chaos Sanctuary. It had faster hit recovery on it as well, and it was +1 to combat skills, but was for the Barbarian. That's right, I found a freaking B-comb with FHR. So close to something GG, yet so far away. My next find came from Lord Diablo himself on run 285, and it was a unique earth spirit, which is the Spirit Keeper. Unlike the other rare druid pelt Raven lore, this helm really has no niche. What it has though is a pretty hilarious spread of stats. First of all, mine rolled with only one skill out of a possible 2, and has a pretty pathetic fire res roll as it can go up to 40, but it's those resistances that are the most interesting stats on this helm. We have max poison res, straight fire res, straight lightning absorb, and percentage cold absorb. That's pretty cool in my opinion, that it gives resistance to all 4 elements, but in a different way, and kind of plays into the theme of the druid being a being that is so attached to the earth, and this being an earth spirit covering all the elements in all the ways that are possible. Very cool stuff. Not useful, but still, very cool. Next, on run 291, I found a pretty decent find from Travincal for a Berserker MF Barb. I found a small charm with 7% magic find and 32 to attack rating, the max possible being 36. This is a very useful find. That's because this provides 2 of the things that character seeks, MF for obvious reasons, and AR, which is something you may struggle with, especially considering that he's one of the only melee MF character, at least that is in the meta. 7 MF small charms, I mean, are rare as it is, but getting one with AR and that too so high, that's a pretty good find. Speaking of melee characters, on run 292 I found a jewel that may be useful on such a character too. Too bad it was a troll Cinnabar Jewel of Fervor. If you don't know, if this rolled like a little more enhanced damage, like 31% more, this would have been one of the most valuable items in the game, period. In its current state, it's not bad. This still is pretty rare, but when you get this far, you wish you could have just gotten the right roll and gone all the way, but alas. Next drop is nothing to scoff at though. On run 292 I found another skiller at the pits, and it was a bow and crossbow skiller with 27 to life. That is a good find. Sure, people who play physical bosons may be annoyed at this not rolling javelins instead, but I like the Frost Maiden a lot more than the Strafer, so this would complement her very well, increasing her overall damage and life as well. The pits paid out again at run 295 with the unique Bloodlord Skull Dark Force spawn. Again, I would much rather find the other rare Necrohead since it has a much more well-defined niche, but this one is cute as well, providing 30 FCR alongside the possibility to get +3 to all skill trees. Unfortunately, I got the Troll roll with +3 to curses and summoning, but +1 to poison and bone. Thanks game, wasn't gonna use it anyways, but thanks for just confirming that with this roll. On the same run I found another jewel from the pits, and this time it was a Ruby Jewel of Truth with 34% enhanced damage and 7% faster hit recovery. Sure, it's no Ruby Jewel of Fervor, but there are characters like the Uber Smiter who might be in need of some FHR and not attack speed, who would greatly appreciate this along with the ED, so I'll take it. I'm kinda mad that I forgot to record the next drop though, but on run 339 I found the unique Myrmidon Greaves from the Chaos Sanctuary. Shadow Dancers, boys. I mean, these are just cool. Probably never going to get to the offensive prowess of Goblin Toes or the defensive prowess of Trex, but what they do well is they give you +2 to Shadow Disciplines, 30 faster run walk, 30 FHR, and some dexterity, and they look cool while doing it. Not to mention they have the highest base kick damage, so yeah, you may or may not see them used on a kicksing coming sometime in the future. Next, I found a plain but useful drop at run 344 from Travincal, +1 to lightning skills, Grand Charm. An effective lightning sorceress does need some substantial plus skills, and this is one of the easiest ways to get some, so that's cool. Next, on run 357, I found another rare set item to complete a character-specific set, Natalia's Claw. That set actually gives some pretty decent full set bonuses, and this is often the hardest piece of the puzzle, so I'm pretty happy that I got this to complete it. 2 runs later, I got another drop from the CS mobs, and it was another high rune, Vex Rune. Most people don't even consider this a high rune, but I'm not going to grumble at all since I needed this to make the rune word Death, which I plan to use in a future video, so I'm satisfied with this find. Next, in about 15 runs, I found some pretty cool ethereal gear for mercenaries. First, at run 375, I found an Eth Kiraz at Travincal. Ironic thing about this being that this is actually a really good mercenary helmet for running Travincal specifically. It didn't roll the best with 61 all resistances as it goes from 50 to 70, but honestly, it doesn't matter. Your mercenary will be capped out either way. Next, another helm which would be good on a Travincal running mercenary is an Ethereal Crown of Thieves, which is what I found from Mephisto at run 378. A lot of gold finding characters will find this extra useful since not only does it provide fire res and some decent lifesteal, but also some gold find. The rolls of both I got 1% off of perfect. Then, breaking the chain of Eth items, I found a Skiller Grand Charm. This time it was a Poison and Bone Skiller at the pits on run 386. Always useful for a future pit running Poison Necro. Then we go back to some more ethereal mercenary items with the final one at run 390, which was Duriel's Shell dropped from Diablo. This isn't that good of an item, like I would never possibly use it because Fortitude is just so OP, but it's cute and OG, and so I wanted to show it off anyways. Next drop though was a big boy drop, one of my favorite items in the game, drops in the pits on run 396, Unique Dimensional Shard, Death's Fathom. Now I have probably said this before, but I hate running the ancient tunnels with the Blizzard Sorceress. Just a personal preference thing. But if I were to ever run them, this would be my weapon in slot. I got a pretty nice roll on the percentage cold damage as well, as it goes from 15 to 30, and my 27% will take the damage output from my Blizzard Sorceress to the next level. Good stuff. Next, we find more stuff for characters which can run the ancient tunnels. This time though, for the Frost Maiden, I found a pretty nice set of gloves with +2 to bow skills, 20% increased attack speed, 13 lightning resistance, and 17% magic find. I had been hunting for a pair like these, and though they aren't over the top GG no re, they're definitely serviceable and will probably get used on a Frost Maiden in the future. That's what I love about projects like these, finding stuff that you can use on future MF characters, and one of those items is of course the staple Ist rune which I found from the Countess on run 454. That's why I run her really, since she has a pretty good chance to drop this, and of course the Key of Hate. Next drop though was not an item I am likely to use on any character, and it was an especially oof moment since it was a pretty rare one, and to add insult to injury, it was a duplicate. The unique Bloody Legend Spike, Ghost Flame. I would have rather saved my luck on this and used it a while later on something like a unique diadem, but nope. At least I got perfect enhanced damage on this though. Ooh. The oof moments though kept on coming. On the next run at Mephisto I found a rare circlet. Now I know what you're thinking, a rare circlet? Boy, those are always good in a compilation since they're 220s, right? Well yeah, but no, since this was +2 to barbarian skills. Honestly, if this would have been +2 to Assassin, Necro, or Paladin, I would have been buzzing. Even +2 to Amazon, Sorceress, or Druid and I would have been fine, but Barbarian? Really? There is no viable Barbarian build that takes advantage of plus skills. And before you say, what about the Singer Barb? Well, in my eyes, to be viable, the build has to be non-boring. Next, even if that +2 was somehow useful, no barbarians really need that 20 FCR because you can dual wield Whiz Spikes to get to the 105 FCR breakpoint easy as ever. Now that is some wasted RNG if I've ever seen any. Well, at least next I got some RNG that I'd been waiting on for a while at that point on run 473 with a unique Bone Visage, which is Giant Skull. See, this is the type of helmet you put on a barbarian. Well, a throw barbarian at least. That's because of the knockback and the crushing blow largely, but the 2 sockets, which is a lucky roll, allows me to put things like Jewels of Fervor in there for attack speed or Ruby Jewels for increased enhanced damage. Also, I got a middling roll on the strength, which goes from 25 to 35, and a 5 of perfect roll for defense, so that's nice. What's also nice is that this helm can be beneficial on Bozons as well, and yes, that includes Act 1 mercenaries. The next drop though isn't good for any builds that I know of. The unique Zakharum shield from the River of Flame on run 476, which is the Dragon Scale. I mean, 15% fire skill damage will only help Holy Fire, which is garbage in health, so there is no viable Paladin build that would want to use this. Even the bloody 10 to Hydra is bested by level 30 charges that you get from Torch. Of course, that's the problem with having 10 to Hydra, right? Because that skill is so good on its own. Yeah, great item. Well, after that bad find, I found a pretty decent item in the form of this magic jewel in the next run. It is a jewel with 15% increased attack speed and 79 to attack rating. Now sure, again, it does not have that 40% enhanced damage that we all look for, but this could arguably work better on something like a Pit Zerker, since that guy really needs the attack rating from wherever he can get it, so sticking this thing in like an Immortal King's helm might not be the worst idea. What also isn't the worst idea neither is to drop more skillers, and that's exactly what I did on run 479 with another Javelins and Spear skiller. Also, I know my segues have become very stupid and I apologize. It's late, but you know what? Skillers like these are always useful to find, and that's why I decided to show them off. Next though, I found a very GG drop, and it was a pair of rare boots, and you already know this is going to be good. Now, they're not super GG since they lack faster run walk, but what they do have is 1 off of perfect gold find, and combining that with the lightning and fire resistance and some cheeky MF as well, you have a recipe for the perfect boots for a gold finding blizzard sorceress. And considering I've been trying to gear mine up lately, I will take these gladly. What was also fun was that the next drop came in the very next run, this time from the Countess, and it was a unique Demon Heights sash, but what makes it eligible for the cut to be in this video is that it had perfect lifesteal and damage reduction. Now that's a GG find for any melee character that wants to either go through the game or do Ubers, like my Smiter. Now these drops had been cool and all, but the item I had been looking for the most during these drops dropped on run 502, and it was my second low rune of this whole journey. Now I know I had big plans for my previous low rune and how I was gonna use it for hashtag expensive rune words like ice or phoenix, but actually I'm about to commit one of the most heinous crimes that you can do in Diablo 2. Yeah, look away people, because I'm about to cube up some high runes. I've been waiting on my infinity a while, but with this low rune I can cube 2 of them up to get a Sir, which I can cube up with my existing Sir to get a Burr. And bang bang, there is only one thing left to do. Now I'm using an ethereal 4 open socketed great poleaxe as my base. A lot of people like using the Thresher these days. I haven't found one, so I'm just gonna use this, which honestly gives more DPS with low attack speed, and dang, that 310% enhanced damage roll definitely helps, as it is only 15 away from perfect. The rest of the rolls on there are irrelevant. Of course, the stat that we want to highlight though is that level 12 conviction aura, and I am beyond stoked to use this on my future characters. For now though, it was time to chill things down some, and that happened with another skiller dropped in the CS at run 507, and it was a poison and bone skiller. A good skiller for a character that can benefit from the aforementioned infinity. The next drop was of an item I really like, and it was at the CS on run 527 that I found the unique Sky Spirit Raven lore. I love items like these that fit specific niches and outperform your regular best in slot candidates like Shaco. This item does that for the Fire Elemental Druid due to the large bonus to minus enemy fire resistance, quite akin to something you would get for Lightning on a Griffin's Eye. Now I got a pretty good roll on these 2 stats that matter, minus negative fire res, which goes from minus 10 to minus 20, and all resistance, which goes from 15 to 25. Therefore, overall, a very niche but important piece of the puzzle for that GG Fire Druid build, and I would love to use it in the future. Next on run 532 I found a skiller which is one of the most valuable, my second ever P-Comp, that is a Paladin combat skiller. Now sure, this one isn't as amazing as my 25 life one from before, but heck, I'll take a free boost to my damage any day of the week. Next I found an item from Diablo which I had been hunting for a while, the unique Balrog skin, which is Arcane's Valor. Now this item is pretty cool because A, it is pretty rare, 2, it gives plus skills from which I got plus 2 as its roll, since it can roll either plus 1 or plus 2, and 3, it also gives a very significant vitality bonus. Honestly, this thing could work pretty well on a character that doesn't need Enigma but likes to have plus skills, you know, like the Sorceress, especially if you don't need FCR from something like Skin of the Viper Magi. Next up, I found another skiller on run 579, and this time it was from LK. What? Chinmay, I didn't know you were running LK. Yeah, I know, I decided to add this after the fact, but it only takes a couple of seconds to pop a couple LK chests while doing MF runs, and sometimes it can lead to good results, like this one with +1 to bow and crossbow skills and 5 to dexterity. Not much to lose, is there? Well, that skiller would work very well on a Frost Maiden, and I'm sure she'd be buzzing about this next drop just as much as I was. Another one of my favorite items, Nightwing's Whale. I dropped this from Diablo, kind of fluffed the recording, but well, this is here and it is awesome with 11% cold skill damage, which goes from 8 to 15. So it's not necessarily the best roll, but I'm not going to grumble. That 11% still helps boost the damage up quite a bit, especially with the +2 to skills that this helm already provides, and the dexterity, cold absorb, and reduce requirements are all nice touches as well. So those were a lot of nice finds in a row, right? And I guess the game wanted to give me some of those precious oof moments back. And I got one here on run 603 where I found my third unique Berserker axe. That's right, third. I didn't even show you my second one because I was so tilted at the wasted RNG that I deleted the clip, but man, 3 death cleavers? One of them being ethereal as well? Imagine the stuff I could have gotten in the place of that. Well, I'll tell you what also I did get in place of the things I could have gotten. Another Death's Fathom. Yeah, I mean, I can't even. You see, I like these items and these are amazing finds, but I also like to use items in Diablo 2, and what am I even gonna do with this? Especially as an additional slap to the face, it is exactly 1% worse than the first one I found. Now you can probably see why I deleted the recordings of these 2 items before. What are you gonna do? Just gonna sit there and take it, I guess. Well, with that, I found a good drop next run at 618, which was a fire facet with -5% resistance and +4% skill damage, which is really nice. I have found more facets throughout the course of these runs, but this is the first decent one, so this is the one I decided to show you. See, items like these, I don't mind getting duplicates off since I can always find a use for them. Similar is the case for the unique ring I found at run 633, which was another Bullcatho's wedding band with another 4% lifesteal roll. More than anything, it is just funny to me that I had such a hard time finding my first one of these, and now that the floodgates have opened, I can't help but find them. That too with identical rolls. Still, a really great item overall, so can't really complain. Another great item which is always a pleasure to find is an Ist rune, and I found another one on run 643 at the pits. Give me as many duplicates of these as you want. There are many uses of Ist runes I can get, you know, like ranging from 6 Isted phase blades to using rune words like I just did with Infinity. So finding this rune is always going to be nice. Next on run 669 I got a pair of Javazon gloves which were actually strikingly similar to the Boazon gloves I found before. +2 to javelin skills, 20% increased attack speed, 14% lightning resistance, and 17% magic find. Again, they're not over the top GG no re, but I always prefer using rare gloves like these with such additional mods to Magic 320 gloves, which can be hard to vendor as well. 4 runs later I found another high rune-ish. It's another Vex rune. A good solid find. Don't really have a use for it as of right now, but the rune words Silence and Phoenix are 2 that I want to build in the near future, which both require this rune. After that high rune we go back to the train of skillers, and this time it was one for the Necromancer, +1 to summoning skills from the Travincal. Cool. Run 679 was sort of a crazy one because it featured a double drop. First drop was at the pits and it was the set Shadow Plate, which is Elder's Advanced. This was the final piece that I actually needed to complete the set and is, as you can expect, the hardest piece of the puzzle to find. Keeping that trend going, another hardest set piece from the respective set to find are some set Scissor Suaya, which are what I found while killing mobs in the Durance of Hate level 3. Them of course being Gnat's Claw. TBH, I wouldn't have shown neither of these if they dropped on their own, but the fact that they drop back to back is some crazy RNG. Some crazy wasted RNG, but crazy nonetheless. 3 runs after this I found a unique ring at Nilhathak which turned out to be a wisp projector. Now this is the second wisp that I've found while doing these runs, and I decided to show this one because it actually had some decent overall stats with 17% lightning absorb and 20% MF. Both of those stats can go from 10 to 20%. The other one that I found was On run 683 though, all of my hard work paid off. After 1,000+ runs on the Blizzard Sorceress and so many MF runs on this guy, I finally found the elusive unique Vampire Bone gloves from Mephisto, and as a bonus, they were not even ethereal. I mean, don't get me wrong, these gloves still flippin' hate me, it seems, as the stat rolls on them were bad all around, but what matters is that the 5% chance to cast level 10 life tap, and I can finally put it to use as well. That was almost like a weight lifted off of my shoulders, and to make me even more of a happier man, 15 runs later I found yet another fire facet, which was literally identical to the previous one I had found. I mean, I'm not going to grumble. The last one was awesome and this one follows suit. On run 704 though, I found a different item than the one that you've seen in this compilation, or any drop compilation it seems, because it was the unique Shadow Plate, the Steel Carapace. This armor is so cool with high defense, some mediocre stats, and an awesome freaking jet black image, so it baffles me that I don't see this being highlighted in other drop compilations. Maybe it is just that rare, which will make sense since it is also completely useless, and those are the only types of rares I tend to find. I say that, and my next drop is an exceptionally useful item on run 720 from the Durance level 3. This area has been on fire lately, no pun intended. This time it was another unique amulet, which was my third Maras of this project, but this one was very special since it was almost perfect, rolling with 29 to all resistances. Like I mentioned before, that can go from 20 to 30. A very good find for a variety of characters who don't mind some plus skills, resistances, and don't need FCR from the amulet spot. Next drop though was another skiller, this time from the Countess, and it was a particularly trolly one since it turned out to be +1 to shadow disciplines with 27 to life. Now that hurts. A trap GC would have been perfect with that life since I'd need that from my traps in, but alas. Don't worry though, because good times were coming, and on run 731 I found yet another unique Berserker axe. I'm sorry, I thought I was promised good times game. Actually this one was good because the enhanced damage roll on this Death Cleaver was the highest that I had gotten, and it was only 5 off of perfect, so that is not shabby Alonzo at all. The good times though came 2 runs later. This was the best magic find run I had out of all the 1000 runs by a long shot, so strap in. First we start with a little bit of a bump in the road with a very rare but very duplicate item in the pits, which is the third dimensional freaking shard. I know I said that I like this item. Not this much though, game. Another Death's Fathom. I mean, the only silver lining to this is that this one was 28%, which is 1% better than my first one. And I only have 13 more to go to complete the collection. So there's that. Don't start sulking just yet though, because we're just getting started and I'm speeding up the run to show you proof that this was the exact same one. No editing. Well, some editing. That is till we land on a set sacred armor, the Immortal King's Soul Cage. Now I personally wanted to find this item to complete my barbarian set, so I was quite happy, but you might be sitting there like, yeah, that was cool, but really? That's why this was the best run? Well, I've got some good news for you. The Sacred Armor and the Dimensional Shard is nice and all, but we're gonna keep on rolling forward. In my mind, there is only one more drop that can really make this run a whole lot better, and it is this one. My second Burr Rune. Now, I'm fairly certain that I did not kill a monster for this drop, but instead it happened because of a seal pop, which makes it just so much cooler. I mean, I don't know how many people who play this game out there can say that they found a Death's Fathom and a Burr Rune on the same game session, but you can add my name to that list. Now I shall proceed to put on sunglasses and drive off in my Ferrari. Wait, I don't have a Ferrari. We'll just stay here then. This Burr Rune is something I really wanted though, and that was because I wanted to make a beast. Now I know it might come as a shock to some that I'm building a beast before a Chains of Honor, but beast gives me more content to bring to you guys, and that's just how we roll on this channel. Speaking of rolls, the enhanced damage on this weapon can roll up to 270%, so that 268 is super nice, along with the crushing blow as well and the fanaticism aura while equipped. This weapon can be used by traditional melee characters like a frenzy barbarian, used on a summon necro to provide fanaticism for your party, and finally as my favorite role, on a bear sorceress. Good stuff. Well, that run certainly was a doozy, so let's chill out again with some low profile yet cool drops like this unique amulet from Andariel, this one finally being the Seraph's Hymn I had been hunting for. With this amulet I have officially found every unique ring and amulet on this game, and I'm saying that as if that's a thing to be proud of, but you know what? I am. The collection is complete. Even though I might not use most of them, looking at you Manals and Nokazins, but I'm still glad you're all in here. After all, as Heath Ledger once said,
No, you complete me. You're garbage.
Next on run 768 was a drop to make boyhood dreams come true. The unique Hydra bow which dropped in the pits off of a champion skeleton, I believe. Ladies and gentlemen, the Wind Force. Now the only varying stat on this bow is the mana steal, which goes from 6 to 8% and is pretty irrelevant because this bow is amazing either way. Good attack speed, huge enhanced damage, max damage based on character level, and knockback. Again, I am not the biggest fan of the physical boson, but if I ever decided to play with her, this shall definitely be in my weapon slot. Along with a Faith Mercenary, of course. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves though. First we gotta get through the mainstream meta characters, and one of those is the Trapsin, and for her I found a Grand Charm with +1 to traps. I'm quite lacking in these, so this drop at run 770 at the Chaos Sanctuary definitely was a pleasant one. Next, I found another, and stop me if you've heard this one before, Rune in the Pits, but like I said, I'm not going to grumble since this is always useful. Also, 14 runs later, I found another, and stop me if you've heard this one before, a Traps Skiller in the Chaos Sanctuary. Huh. If you thought that was weird, on run 796 I found, and yeah, stop me if you've heard this one before, another bloody Wind Force in the Pits. So my last 5 drops, I found a Wind Force, a Traps Skiller, an Rune, a Traps Skiller, and a Wind Force? What? This is such a disappointing TC87 to find as well, since it has no stat rolls like I mentioned before, and therefore you can't even hope to find a better one. Boyhood dreams are exciting when they come true. Not really when they come true twice. While I was grumbling at that, the next drop happened at run 806 at the Arcane Sanctuary, and it was an item I haven't found yet. Well, it was a rune, and it was a Gull rune. This again is quite useful since I plan to make a Kingslayer soon for a Frenzy Barbarian, and this will save me from queuing up 2 ists to get it. Nice. What was also nice was that the rune train did not stop there, as next on run 812 in the Durance level 3, one of the council member dudes dropped me an Ohm rune. These council members have elevated rune drop odds, and although the ones out in the Trav had been absolutely disappointing, these guys have saved their people's name a little bit. That Ohm rune is very useful though, and I'm going to put it to use to build myself a new call to arms. The one that I have right now has +4 to battle orders, which can roll up to +6, and trust me, it does make a difference. Thankfully, this one was better, almost perfect even, lest for that one off of perfect battle orders which rolled +5. I guess then, the hunt continues. Next up on run 813 I found 2 skillers back to back in the CS. The first one I found was a troll one, since it was a 7% faster run walk, Beacomb. So close, again. The next one made up for it though by being a useful, plain, +1 to lightning skiller for the sorceress. I think this whole compilation is becoming about 2 things at this point, skillers and duplicates. In that spirit, the next item I got was on run 816 in the pits, and it was a set Corona. Again. I would have loved for this to have rolled unique, because I actually would have used the COA on this very character because the ugly Shaco sprite is doing my head in. Alas though, I guess I'll have to live with it for a couple hundred more runs. Yet another duplicate item came 5 runs later at Shenk this time, and it was a unique ring which rolled as a 4% lifesteal Bulkatho's wedding band. What does a man have to do to get a 5% BK? Hell, I'll settle for a 3% at this point. Just no more duplicates, please. The game listened to me apparently, and gave me a new and exciting drop next run, which was a Sur rune from the council members inside Durance level 3. The Travincal had been hot trash throughout, but these guys just keep on giving out. Speaking of the Sur though, I really don't have a use for it right now, so I might keep it. I may probably just end up transmuting it to a Burr eventually, because there aren't a lot of rune words that use this rune. I mean, Bramble and Doom come to mind, but I'm really not close to making either of them right now. Next I found a really cool item on run 825 from Eldritch, and it was an ethereal ogre axe, which was Bonehew. The ethereal mod obviously increases its damage a lot, and it also helps that it rolled very well with 5% off of perfect enhanced damage. It's just sad that I can really see no use for it. Its brother in crime, the unique Thresher, at least has a well-defined niche as being the best weapon for wind druids. This, on the other hand, will probably just stay in my stash collecting dust. Until, of course, I go crazy enough to try to use it in a mini playthrough. You never know. Speaking of crazy, this next drop was Crazy Troll. If this had rolled actually good, it would have made even the elitists of this game drool, because it was a set of rare boots with 30 faster run walk, 10% faster hit recovery, and get this, 38% cold res and 30% poison res. Everything is perfect apart from the two elements that it is providing resistances to. I mean, I guess some MF would have been nice too, but for a pair of defensive boots, for like a Javazon doing Ubers, these would have been amazing with fire and lightning res, and instead, this is what we got. Okay then, next I found two Ist runes back to back on run 829. The first one came from the Chaos Sanctuary. Man, it's almost like the CS and pits are having like an internal competition as to what place can drop me the most stuff of them all, and the CS takes another point with this one. The next one though didn't drop at the pits, but quite nearby at the Countess. Gimme. Well, if the CS and pits were actually having the competition I was talking about, I think we already have a winner, folks. Run 832, while getting to the CS, some ogres dropped me the beauty that is the unique diadem, Griffin's Eye. It didn't roll too bad neither. Minus 17% lightning res, which can go from minus 15 to minus 20, and 14% skill damage, which can go from 10 to 15. Combine those stats with plus 1 to skills and 25 FCR, you have one of the best items in the game in front of you, people. Arguably, the minus resistances are more important, so a bit of a bummer that it didn't roll higher, but I really don't think I should complain since I'm going to be using it a lot in the future on lightning sorceresses and Javazons. 5 runs later, the CS made a return with another great item, an Ormus Robes, which rolled plus 3 to Blizzard. Oh baby. A lot of people undermine the viability of these. I absolutely love them. Just the fact that these have such a variability with the skills they can roll makes them just so exciting. Not to mention they will add some significant damage to the right skill and 20% FCR as well. The only shame is that I didn't get a 15% cold damage roll, but meh, I have a 28% Death's Fathom, you know. I think with all that, my Ancient Tunnel Sork will be just fine. You know, I think the Durance level 3 needs to enter in that competition between the pits and the CS because this place keeps giving out. Next, it dropped me yet another fairly rare unique TC87 item, which was the unique War Pike Steel Pillar. Now, given that the unique Bone Hue was not able to tickle my fancy in terms of usability, you can tell this thing has pretty much no chance. I mean, it is cool and powerful with a 240% ED roll, which goes from 210 to 260%, and it has 25% IAS and Crushing Blow, but the OP rune words with their auras when equipped are just a little too strong for this to be relevant. Sad, but true. Next, I found another one of those items we love to see in this compilation. No, not another duplicate, the other one, a Skiller Grand Charm, on run 840 from the CS, and it was plus 1 to bow and crossbow skills for my future Frost Maiden. Now, even though I have declared the CS the winner, that isn't going to keep the pits down, since on run 853 a Devilkin dropped me an Ohm rune. You know what had to follow. The dream for +6 BO isn't going to achieve itself, you know. Unfortunately, this attempt is not going to achieve it neither, since I got a 2-4-3 roll on the CTA. Not the worst, but we sure are going downhill. That's a wee bit concerning, not gonna lie. Well, whatever, the game goes on, and it goes on to drop me another skiller at run 888 at the Travincal. Yeah, these buggers actually dropped me something worth showing, and it was a poison and bone skiller with 3 to dexterity, cause why not? That's a pretty boring drop, right? But the next drop was nothing short of absolutely mental. It was a rune from the Countess Tower, so you might think that was probably an Ist rune, right? Yeah, not exactly. Don't know if you used to follow Mr. Llama back in the day, but a guy named BYD once told a story in that stream about how he found a burr rune while doing Countess Runs, and nobody believed him, including myself. Today, I think I have seen everything there is to see in this game. Well, while you also try to take in what you just saw, let's do some nice rune word building, shall we? This burr rune is gonna be used in pretty much the last useful rune word one can make with this rune, Chains of Honor. Dol Burr Ist in a 4 open socketed body armor yields what in my opinion is the best armor for doing Ubers for almost all characters. +2 to skills, damage to demons and undead, 8% lifesteal, 20 to strength, and a huge 65 to all resistances. Also 25% MF to get better torches, XD LOL. Seriously though, this armor is sick. Probably still worse than Enigma for magic find purposes, since +1 to teleport is such a game changing stat, but this has a lot of other good things going for it, including that I made it in a sexy Archon plate. Boys, I am majorly kicking myself for rushing and building my Enigma in a Dusk Shroud after looking at how much exponentially better the AP looks on all characters. I may make another Enigma just for this boss appearance with the next burr we find. May just. Let's stop flying in the sky though and come back to planet Earth for the next drop. Actually, it's a pretty amazing one as well. The unique Colossus Blade at the pits on run 930, the Grandfather. I actually have found this weapon before while doing like 2 ancient tunnel runs randomly with my Blizzard Sorceress a while back. It rolled horribly though, and this one is a lot better with 230% enhanced damage out of a range of 150 to 250. And what else can I say about this weapon? It's an absolute icon. Here's something I can say. You might be seeing me use this in a future video, winky face, and I am pretty excited about that. What I was also pretty excited about was the next skiller drop. Only a few magical grand charms can get that reaction from me, and one with +1 to combat skills for the paladin is definitely on that list. Although my time with this guy is coming to an end, it's always still a pleasure to gear him up further to eke out just that little bit more damage. Not to mention +3 to dexterity will help me reach max block easier and allow me to reallocate points to vitality. That's very nice. You know what else is nice? Unique rings from Andariel. Especially so if they roll what mine did on run 934, my first Stone of Jordan of the year. I almost thought that I would go through 1000 runs without finding one of these, but thankfully not so. Even though BK rings are just as good, if not better, There is just something about this ring that gets us Diablo fans all buzzing, and I absolutely love it. We're coming to the end now, pals, and what a way to end other than with a chain of skillers. First, a javelin and spear skiller at the pits with +7 to life, boostable by battle orders. Oh baby. You can't see it, but I have it written ridiculously on my script because that phrase always just makes me chuckle. I don't even know why. Boostable by battle orders. Hilarious. Next, I found another useful skiller at the Chaos, this time with +1 to lightning skills for the Sorceress. Boy, seems like the game really wants me to use that Griffins already. All in good time, boys. Right now, in the midst of finding all these skillers, I went down to Nilhathak's lair on run 967 and I found a unique ring, Wisp Projector. OMG you boys, a duplicate surrounded by skillers? Who would have seen that coming? That probably should be the title of this video, a duplicate surrounded by skillers. Probably won't get much clickbait out of it, but at least it sounds funny. Well, we gotta finish the video first, and for that we gotta go back to the skillers again, but I'm absolutely not going to grumble for the next one, because it was from LK. Remember when I said only a few GCs get me as excited as a Peacomb? Well, this is one of them, my second ever Cold Skiller. Cold Sorceresses are just so versatile, and I'm using one right now for gold finding, and this is a great drop for her, so I'm a happy man. Actually, I duped you a little bit because we're not ending with skillers. For the end of the video, we got 2 high runes. On run 983, I got an Ohm rune at Nilhathak. Now, I decided to keep this one instead of attempting another CTA, just to calm down the CTA RNG gods for a while, and I may use it to make another more expensive rune word. Speaking of expensive runes though, I am very happy to say that for the end of the video I finally found a high rune higher than Burr, a Jaw rune from the pits on run 987. I had been searching for this rune all throughout and now finally I got it. I can actually make Faith right now, given the Ohm rune I found before, but nah. Who wants to build an actual useful rune word when you can build older ones in more beautiful bases, right? Archon Plate Enigma, here I come. That will have to wait for another run project though, because for this one, that's all folks. Now I will show a full run to you while closing this off, but it literally takes like 15 minutes, so I'll just show you a part while I close off by talking about some general stuff about the project. Like I mentioned, each run averaged 15 minutes since I was running like 9 areas, 10 if you include the late LK runs. So in total it took me 15,000 minutes, which is 25 hours in total. So ideally it should have taken me a day to make this video, but it actually took me like 2 months with about 4 hours of gameplay and other stuff each day. I took frequent breaks of course to help me not lose my head, but it can get tough. Especially if you're like 300 runs in and you're finding absolutely nothing, but you're too far in to quit and you're too far away to tell yourself it will be over soon. That's the grind though, innit? Taking breaks is quite nice though, and in my opinion just keeps the grind fresh when you come back after a day off, where I probably just spent the whole day playing another video game. Oh, the lockdown days, how cruel art thee. Anyways, your regular mini playthrough programming will resume starting next video. Safe to say I will not be doing a project this crazy, probably ever, so I hope you enjoy it. Yours truly, with love.